good afternoon. It's extremely exciting to see so many people here, and very interesting topic for a discussion today. The speakers earlier before me, Nina and Jarmo, has actually opened up a lot already of interesting things that I could cut out of my presentation because they were so brilliant. And what I would like to talk to you about is the immersive experiences. And before I jump into the presentation, I want you to remember this link. So there are a few questions. There are only 3 questions which are already there now. And most likely you would like to answer them after my presentation because that's something that I will bring up, some provocative things maybe, or some stuff that you might not have considered before. But you can already now have this link in your mobile browser, so you can go back to it. Easy to remember, VR7. So creative approach from the guys. It was a very good link. So immersive experiences and us being humans, is that something which is natural to us? Is that something that is actually against our nature? Is it too much tech-oriented? Is it not? So for the centuries before, we as humans, we really build up on communicating with each other. So we cannot be lonely. We suffer if we are lonely. So we need to have a dialogue. We need to have a conversation. We need to be communicating. And if we look into the expression of our communication techniques. So we started from gathering around the bonfires. We continued by writing text and leaving notes to each other. We then entered the era of having images and digital type of communication, moving to motion pictures and videos. So what's next? And for the recent years, the next step has been defined as XR, so immersive experiences, virtual, augmented, and mixed realities, and whatever is in between that spectrum. And that feels from some of the big players in the industry as natural step forward in communication and building the relationship between brands and companies and their users or employees and customers. And of course, it all evolves around the storytelling, the way how we give our message forward, the way how we present things to the audience, to the users, to the customers. And from the storytelling, we are also moving to story living, sometimes driven by augmented reality, and also the story doing in virtual reality, when we actually give action to the, or give active agency to the users and to the customers. So just to have now a short recap about what is virtual, mixed, and augmented reality. So there is the whole spectrum of immersive computing. And to establish the understanding, the real environment is what we all see now, what we witness, what we might be used to. Then there is on the other end of the spectrum, the virtual reality, the fully digital images which do not allow us to see the real reality. So that we are completely in a different situation. It might be different time, might be different location, might be completely 3D generated type of environment. And augmented and mixed reality is something that come close to each other. It's connecting the digital overlay of information or actions on top of the real world. And there are a few different examples of that that I will showcase to you. But before we move forward to that, I want to ask you a question. Give me a guess. When was the first time when virtual augmented reality technology was conceived and created? Anyone just shout out. Was it 1800s? Was it 1900s? Was it something in between? Any brave people? There is no more of this. Sorry? 1950, wow, you got it actually quite right. So that's a curious image of the machine, which was called Sensorama, and it was conceived to be the immersive entertainment type of machine. And it came around in 1955. So the inventor wanted to put in all types of sensory impressions and sensory feelings in this machine so that you could have stereoscopic images, you could have sound, you could have smell, you could have vibration, you could have like these, aromas coming to you. But of course, this was not hitting the market just then. It was patented and looked into, but it took quite a long time from 1955 to get to where we are now. There were a few more attempts in the early days, which are quite curious to see right now. So in '61, there was more or less the first augmented reality type of headset which we know about. And also in closer to the 90s already, there was the first commercial wearable headset. And then we look at what is happening nowadays. So we have big players which are bringing on the market something that seems to be from sci-fi movies of the past when they're looking in the future. How do all of these technologies, for example, this HoloLens, like if I come to give a speech in a HoloLens, would you consider me still a very futuristic or maybe a crazy person? Would you know what I see through my HoloLens? When I look at you, at the audience, would you feel comfortable me wearing this type of headset? These are the questions. And there are a lot of discussion and a lot of development happening in the technology, but this is not the key thing right now. So the key thing is to understand how we humans are perceiving this technology. What are the things that it empowers us to do? How do we change our habits based on this advancement of technology, and what type of experiences it brings to us? Technology is moving constantly forward, so we are losing the cords for the new headsets. They become much more powerful. With the use of 5G technology, we don't need to have very bulky devices because most of the computing of the experiences can be done in the cloud and almost real time, then brought back to you as experience. And of course, majority of us already have the smartphones, which are becoming more and more equipped with capabilities of bringing this extended reality, enhanced reality to us every day in different situations. Some of the advancements already even have that you don't need a special app in order to access the layer of extra information by pointing your device on building, for example, or on a human or anything else. So what we're moving towards and what the future is that is being currently conceived and discussed and on the trajectory is not having any devices at all in order to access all of this data and all of the information, and information which is in intelligent way brought to us from the perspective of the right moment in time and the right context. So not only the contextual information is being sensed, so the augmented world could actually give us the context that this is the situation where multiple people are listening to one person. But at the same time, what I'm doing, my facial expressions, my speech, my breathing, everything is being recognized and sensed by the environment. So the actions that I'm taking are also having the implication on the environment in future. Even now, of course, but then from some perspective, I want to put in here this quite a famous quote by Albert Einstein, who was very good giving out quotable things and quotable type of sentences. So the human spirit must still prevail over technology. And the component which is actually quite interesting from this perspective. From the last few weeks, I have visited one of the biggest augmented and virtual reality expos in the world. It brings together professionals and companies working on this technology and showcasing what type of use cases they have in mind and what they're experimenting. And we are moving to the way where we don't have anymore all the devices. It took so many years to create and put in all the sensors just for us to talk about the future when we can lose them and still get all the access to the world information real time in the right context. But there are, of course, some of the challenges which are still playing very big role in creating the experiences which we tie to this type of technological advancement. Some of them are connected to technology, some of them are connected to context and content. And from the technology perspective, of course, there is still quite a lot of difficulties packing a lot of things and sensors and capabilities in some of the hardware. And the manufacturing cost is still quite high. So it's going down constantly according to the laws, but it's still not maybe penetrating the global market really quickly. And from the content perspective, there are challenges creating high quality content and being able to deliver it correctly. So then we come to the point where AI is helping us or helping to create these interactions. So from immersive computing perspective, artificial intelligence is being currently used or tested to be used from creating the interaction. And for example, deep learning is enabling the speech recognition and the natural speech processing. And instead of learning commands to talk to it, you just speak your own language and it's being realized and supported. If you imagine the use case of being in the factory or in a very hazardous environment and some machine is not working, usually you have to wait and you have to get in touch with the professionals who would then be coming and fixing it. But nowadays with the remote maintenance support or with enabled by artificial intelligence support, you can showcase what is happening there. You can get right away a list of actions how to troubleshoot, and you can get it back working in most of the cases. So this is solving some of the industry challenges as well. The other thing is the content generation. So real-time graphics generation, which is allowing to create products according to the specifications which people have in mind, for example, or even to place the products in such situations which would speak on the emotional level to the exact user whom you have in mind. And if I am viewing the reality from my perspective, I might have a bottle of X drink placed here. If you are viewing it from your perspective, then you can have completely different product placed there. So the challenges that we're facing on the more conceptual level is what type of reality are we going to have? Is it a shared experience, or is it very individualized type of reality that everyone would have with the use of these immersive technologies? And we have been looking a lot into different industries and different use cases, how to utilize this virtual, augmented, and mixed reality to solve the challenges which are currently there, and to bring the better experience and the best experience which is possible. And when we start talking about technologies which are not so familiar from the daily use, there's something that might kill or break the trust between the organization and between the user and the employer. So how to take it to the different level, how to create much better experience without breaking this trust. And from the perspective of artificial intelligence being used to support this is something that one of the reports which has been created recently in Tieto has a very interesting perspective also found from the quite big amount of people who were asked or provided their insights. So right now we're trusting the AI or technology to complete some actions for us. And in future, what we're hoping to do is also to trust it to suggest us to make correct decisions or right decisions. So we are already ready to take that next step. And what the previous speakers were talking about, these big questions about AI and the ethical questions about it. So this is something that we need to overcome, and also that plays an important role in what experiences we are creating and delivering and what we are capable of doing. I want to share one example with you of the project that we have done together with Metsä, so the forest company. And we have looked into massive amounts of data being presented to the users in a very visual and immersive way. Some of you might have already tried the virtual reality demo that we have outside of the room. If not, welcome to try afterwards. The component that was taken into account is that it is extremely difficult to make correct decisions about growing your forest and also maintaining it in the correct way. But that is also something that the forest companies depend on in Finland, from the perspective that you have, there are multiple different forest owners which need to provide their assets to the forest companies. So bringing huge amounts of data, visualizing it in such a way that you can immerse yourself in this data and you can test out how this or that action is going to play out in future. And you can visualize the way and you can feel the way that your actions are going to have impact. And you can make the right decision, you can get intelligent recommendations and support for creating or for taking the right decisions in the right time. And the effect of this is now being tested with multiple different owners of the forest. And of course, going from the paper and phone conversations into immersive experience and utilizing different type of approach for it is something that is quite new. And sorry, is something that needs to have still quite a while of figuring out what are the missing components and what are the questions that need to be answered. And from the original way of managing the forestry is moving forward to being quite more enhanced and much more enabling the correct decisions. And the other thing is also understanding how digital content is penetrating now our everyday life, and in those situations where we might not expect it also to happen. How many of you are familiar with this Instagram character? Not many. So I tell you a short story. There are at least fewer people. That seems like quite a normal teenage girl who lives in California. She has her own character. She has her friends. She visits parties. She visits places. But in fact, she is a computer-generated, completely fake type of persona. Note that how many followers she has already. Since 2016, when she was created by a few people who are good in these computer graphics as a test, she has gained a cult-like following. She is not a persona. There is no one hiding behind her. She's not a person in that sense. But she has her friends, she has her social circle, she has her stance, she has her morale. She is, you can see, collecting some donations as well for causes. She is doing also product placement from the top brands like Prada and others. So where is the limit? So can we consider her being a person? If we see her in our Instagram feed, like, can we trust the recommendations that she makes? Do we need to know who stands behind her? Do we need to know what is the monetary exchange of those product placements or whatever is there? So that's quite an interesting perspective. And also, if currently it takes quite a while for the team to create those computer-generated images for her and place them in the real world, and if we automate it to such extent that the AI is riding on trends and places her exactly in those situations which are happening now and which are interesting for each one of us separately, what type of messages are going to be delivered? One other example, that how to monetize, how business models are changing from the perspective of this immersive experience is, if before, when you wanted to influence someone's decision, you wanted, for example, to showcase furniture in their apartments, then you needed to place it, you needed to pay, you needed to figure out how it's done. The guys came up with the clever idea of now having this augmented sponsorship. So the model is that you don't need anymore to have anything bulky and think about that, but of course anything else. So you can just take a picture of having the augmented product placed next to you in order to communicate it to your followers and influence their decisions. So that's something that is already happening and something that we need to take into account, that it's no longer us who are in control. There are bigger forces that are also influencing beyond the voting and beyond those things that we already know. And not even talking about so-called fake news, which are quite high on the agenda. So our life becomes so much unclear where is the actual thing and where is the computer-generated, where is AI-generated type of technologies in place. And just to make a little summary of the stuff, so we need to be ready and we need to plan for those digitally enabled and immersive experiences, be it technology supported, be it simply AI supported, be it anything else or driven or powered. So there are a few advices that I would like to share with you. And first of all, we need to create very clear type of UI and interaction patterns when we create digital services. And when, for example, exploring natural type of interaction and including voice, including eyesight, including gestures into the mix as well. Then keeping the human perspective. So we always need to remember that solving the challenges is the most important thing. So today it might be AI, tomorrow it might be something else. We don't know. Things are changing so fast. So most important is keep in mind that user needs to be in control. So he needs to feel that he's in control. He needs to understand what's happening. And the last but not least is also ensure that the trust is not broken. So make the user the ultimate hero of the stories that you tell. Allow them to make decisions, support them with all the information which is out there, and make it available for them in the correct time and the correct context. And the important also point is to educate the users about what is happening and allow them to co-design and co-create the experiences together with you. And ultimately, the last message is immersive experiences, they have full potential of empowering each and every individual one of us from perspectives of all types of industries and professions and individual situations or personal situations. There is just too much to put in 20 minutes to talk, so I will finish on that. And I would love to hear also, or to read later on, the comments that you put in these questions, which are under the URL. And if you have any questions now, I'm happy to spar with you, because I know many things are quite provocative, and they probably are not something that comes as a given, but yeah, so I leave it on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ksenia.